Welcome to Conversations Live. For more than a decade, we've brought you the best in books, entertainment, celebrity interviews, and current events. When the movers and shakers of the world have something to say to you, they say it to us first. Now celebrating 17 years of broadcasting success, here's your host, Cyrus Webb.
And welcome back, everyone, to Conversations Live. I'm your host, Cyrus Webb. Glad you all could join us once again, both for our radio audience here in Mississippi, as well as our online audience joining us around the world and through our friends at iHeartRadio. We're glad you all could be with us as well. I was just saying to my next guest, it's hard to believe it's been 6 years since Terrell Carter was on with us. At the time, he was promoting a movement that he had called Feeling of Freedom. In 2020, he's not only giving us new music, but also a new book. It's called Problem Child. I had a chance to read it through our friends at Amazon.com. We'll talk to Terrell not only about his career, but also what it's been like for him now to share his story with all of you guys and to see the way that people literally around the world are responding to it. If you guys have not gotten your copy of Problem Child, of course, we'll let you know how to do that and stay connected with all the great things Terrell is doing. But Terrell, welcome back to the program, man.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm just excited to be back.
Well, look, I appreciate it. I know you have a lot going on. Well, Terrell, people know you from television, from film, from stage, and, of course, being a part of some of our favorite music playlists. And now you have another slash you've added in 2020 to your name as a published author. First of all, how does that feel to now have a book, that you've been able to write and a story that you've been able to share?
You know what? Just being able to just being able to share this story and being able to write this story and just get so many things off my chest. It changes how you forgive people. It changed how you operated. How I was operating. I operated under forgiveness, but I had no idea that it was me forgiving from my own standpoint versus me forgiving people based on how they actually operated. Like writing about my father, I had forgiven him so long ago, but it was for me. But to actually forgive him and understand what it was like to go through what he went through, and even though that I didn't agree, if he had, I wouldn't be here.
Right, so true. And I think, the family dynamic, a lot of times, when people look at you, Terrell, and the success you've been able to have, like I said, being a part of so many great projects in the entertainment industry, they don't think about how it all began. But one thing, though, that came across to me when I finished reading Problem Child, though, is why I better understood now the appreciation you have for your place that you have. Do you think that is one of the big takeaways, that people now, they've gotten to see you publicly, but now being able to know the backstory, they understand better the appreciation you have for where you are today?
Absolutely. I think that, I always thought it was about my singing and acting, all of those things. But I realized that once I wrote this book that my true place and true calling, I feel the best, when I'm healing people and people are healing me with my story. And that, all of the other things is just to draw people to me. But I know that my truth here is to heal people and to heal myself.
Right. And there's a lot of different layers in Problem Child. You deal with everything from, abuse, from dealing, of course, from, different circumstances that people are going through, but also the psychological effects of events in life. I mentioned to you before we went on here, one of the incidents that stood out to me, Terrell, in the book was being at Kmart when you were younger with your mother and your sister, and being able to see how your mother was able to, and people who read the book, they'll understand that, dealing with things that people would say. And you even talked about how you could tell that she kind of built up a protection. Talk to us about the lessons you learned from that, the importance of not letting what people say define how you see yourself and who you are.
Well, it's funny. I saw an episode of Dr. Phil when he said something, and it made so much sense. I think that so many of us have the concern about, living your life based on what you think people are going to say about you or, what people are saying. But when you really realize, he said, you worry about what people say about you. But if you really realized and found out and knew how little they did talk about you, you wouldn't even be worried about it. And it makes so much sense. People don't, they just go on with their lives, but it doesn't even really matter. And to be able to just truthfully walk in your truth of who you are and breathe and accept that, accept the things that you can't control and stop trying to control the things that you can't control. And just understand, just enjoy the things in life that are actually given to you. It makes the process so much better. Just trusting the process of what your life is supposed to be.
Yeah. Do you also think, Terrell, because also it's in that chapter where you talk about, because you're one of the things that Terrell mentions in this particular chapter that I'm referencing with Kmart is it's chapter 44, is that you were getting clothes there, and you talked about the bullying. Now, a lot of times people look at you in Terrell Carter 2020. We would think about people bullying you. I mean, but I think also the interesting dynamic is you mentioned that, but then how quickly you came to your mother's defense. When you told the boy, I'll make you walk the plank. Do you think that's also where your empathy came from, Terrell? That you know what it's like to have someone to come against you, so that makes you more quick to want to protect others.
Well, I think I had an interview where a lady asked me, with the cards that you were dealt, how can you just continue to look forward to another day? How are those memories and those cards not still affecting you? And I said, because look at the cards that I was left to play with. Everything that I've been given and blessed with, I was able to use to overcome, my origin. However, I thank God for being and going through all of the things that I've gone through, because I will always understand how it is to be the underdog. I will always understand and have the compassion for when someone is crying, when someone is being bullied, when someone is being hurt, because I've been in that position. When someone is poor, when someone doesn't know how they're going to pay their next bills, that never leaves my body. That compassion never leaves me. I don't just go out and make these movies and make money, and it's just, it leaves me. And I think that I'll always have that compassion because of that, and that's what I'm so grateful for.
Yeah. And I think it definitely comes through in the book. I want to say, for those who are just tuning in, either on the radio side or online, you're listening to Conversations Live. We're excited to welcome back, after 6 years, Mr. Terrell Carter. We're going to talk with him not only about what it's been like for him to reflect on his career, but now in his new book, Problem Child, to reflect on his life as well, to be able to share that with all of us. So, Terrell, I think an obvious question would be, and I, like a lot of other people, watched the video that you did. I think it was on Instagram. I saw it where you kind of talked about telling the story, I think, in the beginning of August. Why did you decide that now was the time? Why did you want to now be able to share the things who have made you who you are?
I think that it's just the perfect time. People are at a place now of truth, no matter what it is. It's dealing with politics, the Black Lives Matters, and people are looking for answers. And I think that there was no greater or better time than the present for me to release this story, where people can see, triumph, overcoming things, victory, winning, and understanding, that it can be okay. So it was the perfect time. And I think that the process, just like I said, trusting the process, it all fell in place. And as soon as my book came out, we went into COVID. So it was perfect because people were at home and they could read the story and they were looking for answers. They were afraid, and right. To see this story triumph, it was the perfect time.
Have you found that also, as you've been, by talking about the book, I know you've had different events you've been able to do virtually, and of course, spending time with your fans, talking with them online, that you are feeling now even a deeper connection with your fans? I mean, they appreciated you for your talent, but now are you finding that they also appreciate you for your resilience?
Well, absolutely. I think that people can see the bigger picture. I think I've had a couple songs, like a song Better Than that I've written before, where people kind of got an idea of what my story was like, but to see my story, and how I've come full circle and how I feel like I'm just getting started. They do see that you're resilient. They do see that you're tender, and they do see that you have compassion, and they understand why. And a lot of times, I tell people all the time, it's easy to make fun of somebody or it's easy to tear someone down, but you don't know what somebody's been through. You don't know what someone's going through. You don't know sometimes I've had a friend who wasn't a friend of mine who, when I first met him, he annoyed me. He just always said the wrong things. He always was extra loud. He always had something that was out of place. And then I just realized and found out who he was and why he was that way. And then you have compassion and understand everybody has their reasons to be who they are. Everybody, there's a reason that people believe the way they do. And all you need to do is open up and allow that to happen, because they don't owe an explanation to you.
Right. I think that's one of the big things. There's one part of the book I'm going to read, actually, Terrell, from chapter 53. Before I get to that, though, and we remind our audience how they can get the book, I do appreciate the time. I want to go back to what I mentioned earlier about social media, especially Instagram. If you guys are not following him there, it's Terrell Music, so make sure you guys are doing that. Talk to us about how you've been able to use that platform. You've been able to not only, of course, to keep us posted on what's going on, Terrell, but I think also kind of sharing some of these great moments. You mentioned you posted recently about that great scene from Empire, and then of course reminding people of them seeing you from the Tyler Perry films. What has that been like for you to kind of reflect on your career, but also to see how those moments have meant so much to your fans?
Well, it's so funny that when people see me in Empire, and then I posted the pastor scene from Diary of a Mad Black Woman, a lot of people didn't make the connection. And I would when I put that up on my Instagram, and I got so many people saying, "Oh my God, that was you that sang in Diary of a Mad Black Woman," and I automatically thought people just would know me because of the singing, and they just kind of put two and two together. They didn't realize that, and then I did a commercial with Kevin Hart, and then I posted, when I was with him doing the movie Think Like a Man 2 with him, and so many people didn't make the connection. So having Instagram for me, it's perfect because it constantly just promotes who you are, but it lets your fans, they're engaged, but they can get a chance to see things that I thought were just automatic. They just would automatically know that was me, but, it's not always true. So it's like a friend of mine, India Arie, the singer, she said to me, there's been times where she goes out on stage, and every time now she introduces herself and doesn't assume just because you've been doing this for this amount of time that everybody understands and knows exactly who you are.
Yeah. I want to read this as we wrap up here, Terrell. And again, thank you so much for this. I want to read this from chapter 53. I think it's a great full circle moment as we're kind of talking here. You write this in the book. I did as I was told, and when I did, it seemed like time stood still. I got a lump in my throat, and my eyes started to sting with tears. Trying to hold them back, I felt 1,000 emotions boiling up inside me. Here I was, the problem child, the mistake boy from a dysfunctional family who barely acknowledged me. Looking at that Hollywood sign, I knew I had found my home and knew right then this was where I was supposed to be. Someday soon, I was going to be here all by myself with not one single one of those people I grew up knowing, whether they loved me or not. I want to talk about what it was like for you to write that and what your message would be to our audience, Terrell, as they kind of think about situations that could have broken them, but don't have to. I mean, what would you say to them based on what you've been able to experience and endure about the importance of not giving up and staying focused on the goal and the dream?
Well, I think that just as I keep saying and keep stressing is trust the process of your life. If you trust the process of your life, the things that I thought would have been my detriment, the things that I thought completely would destroy me were actually the things that I could use as stepping stones to move on to the next level. It's more than just saying, I don't have to be a product of my environment and I'm not going to give up.
Yeah.
But, it's very hard. These are hard times. People are dying. People are hurting. It's not that easy to just tell everybody. And everybody doesn't think the same, But at the end of the day, if you trust the process, that anyone can just trust the process and say, look, I'm not just dead. I'm not just completely out. And, and things may not be like I want them to be, but they needed to be this way for me to understand how important it is, how amazing it is, how I can look at other people now. And it's not about not just giving up. It's about just trusting. I'm on the right track, and I'm doing everything that I can do to move forward. And once I do that, then I have to trust that everything else will play its part, that everything else will fall in place, that I have the faith that the universe, God, it will all just fall in place for me. As long as I'm making those blocks and putting the things in place that I know that this is what I can control. I can get up and look. I can get up and go to work. I can get up and look for a job. I can get up and try to do something. As long as I've made those steps, then I need to trust the process around that entire thing, that it'll be okay and it will work out for me. That's exactly how it works for me. It was no coincidence. There's no other way. There's no other explanation. There's nothing more coincidental than the way that I opened my book. And I started and I talk about the Big Bang Theory and all the planets and how all of that happened and how I don't believe that that's any more of a coincidence than my story. There's just no other explanation than things are supposed to be and things were happening in my life because that's just the way that it was. I trusted the process. So that's just my own opinion. that's my own life. But for me, it worked out well.
Oh, yeah. It definitely has. And I know the journey continues for you, Terrell, and we're excited to see what's next. Again, everyone, Terrell Carter has been our guest. You guys know him, of course, because of his voice, also his acting, but now you get to know him for his book. It's called Problem Child. It's available through our friends at Amazon.com. You guys can get it in print, get the Kindle edition, even the Audible edition that he actually reads himself. Yes. You guys can get it there. And, Terrell, I mentioned earlier Instagram, Terrell Music. Is that the best place for them to stay connected with you?
Yes, they can go to my Instagram, Terrell Music. Twitter is Terrell Music as well, Facebook. But my Instagram is what I usually use as a platform to really get it out there, you know. And I'd love for everyone to go out and check this book out. You can go to, it's on Amazon. It's in Barnes & Noble. I'll be doing, once the COVID, allows us to do it, I'm going to be doing a book tour across the country where I can go into all the Barnes & Nobles and meet all the people who have bought my book. And I'm excited, man. I'm really excited for people to read this story, about my mom, who was 11 years old when she had me and molested, one leg amputated at birth, and just out of all of that, there was still a promise. Out of all of that, it seemed like that there was no other way, that it was negative, that she was raped, she was molested. But then here I am, and I wouldn't change it for the world.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Terrell, for writing this book. Thank you so much again for the time. I really appreciate it, and looking forward to our next conversation together, man.
Absolutely, man. Thank you so much for having me. Thank everybody out there for listening and going and checking out the book. Please drop me a line when you get the book. DM me. Let me know how it touched you, what things that you think I could improve, anything. But I just appreciate everybody out there for supporting Terrell Carter for all these years. Thank you.
Man, I know they appreciate you too, and we definitely appreciate your audience for tuning in to another great segment of Conversations Live.